All right, Brassbird, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm a little sick. You could probably hear it in my nose. Just a little sick, but I'm doing fine. Happy to be here. Happy
Ye-
to see you again. I missed you, baby.
Oh yeah, I missed myself. Yeah, HolyTispoon is back. I took a break, a few month break, and in the course of the break, I left some, I left some things unfinished, so to speak, but also literally. And one of those things that I left unfinished was one of our crazy mega game over the async server, which was PBD500. Now I left around September, there was like around PBD 700 going on, 700, 800. Now we're over 2500, 2550. I've seen more than that.
Isn't that just crazy, man? Isn't that
It,
just crazy?
it is insane. It is insane. So much has happened. And there's like PBD2000 is a big mega game. There's a lot that's happened. But I've been, for the last 6 months or more, I've been feeling bad about how I left PBD 500 kind of in media res, like with all the actions were waiting for me to drop. Some very sad memes were going on there. Some sadness, and I felt guilty about it and responsible. And then I came back a couple just last 2 weeks and decided, let's see what can happen. Checked in with some of the folks. This was one of the sad one, right? We started this PBD 500 and then have to have millions of years before Kalun posted one that's even more sad for me to see. But in any case, I came back. I was kind of checking in. What's going on? Do people want to do PBD 500? And half the people have moved on. Some of them are not playing async, etc. So it seems like the momentum for the game has died over the 6 month hiatus, which is understandable. But there was an interest and desire to hear what was the plan for the game and to discuss a little bit of what happened, why it collapsed on its own weight, why it generated so much mental burden and stuff. So I thought BB will come together and we'll discuss PBD 500.
Yes.
So PBD,
Fantastic.
yeah, so for PBD 500 was like a mega game that I started running, and you were playing in it, correct? Right? Who were you playing?
Yeah, so I had teamed up with Tertero, and we were playing Titans in the Southeast Galaxy. Is where we were. Let me
Yes.
pull it up here. I got it over on my own screen right here. But the Southeast Galaxy, as you can see, yeah. So we're Titans over in the corner there, and just like kind of a standard Titans game, like nothing to complain about. We did well enough, but on the scoreboard, still in the bottom of the pack there.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a good time. Teratero, as always, was lovely to be with. He wasn't able to spare as much time as maybe I would have liked or whatever, but still always lovely to hear from him in our team chat. And yeah, just I don't know. Southeast was just kind of a standard game.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on in the other galaxies that we'll get into, obviously, but it was just like a pretty standard game going over in Southeast.
Right. So let's back up and talk about what these galaxies are overall. So I'm showing this now on the screen. So I showed your galaxy as you were talking. This was the setup of the game. So BBD 500 for its time, just like a lot of these mega games, kind of pushed the bot to develop new things. We had to add a ton of new tiles to populate this map so we would even have these tiles. So Aeronos, shout out to Aeronos, who's done a ton of free graphic work for the bot, has created all these like wonderful tiles that were not in existence beforehand. It's kind of funny now it generates it with all the PDS protection
Oh
bubbles
yeah,
that didn't.
no, absolutely.
So the idea I had for PBD 500 was that maybe we'll back up, but just like the rules for the game that were here is that there's 24 factions, so all factions except one, of course. There was a draft where in the draft, each team, there's some people playing a team, some were alone, picked a position. All these galaxies were pre-made, right? A position in one of the four galaxy, a faction, and also where to which slice. I think the slices were kind of we moved them around a little bit. That's not as important. But the key idea here was that the game is played in two eras, right? The first era was the era of survival. So in the first era, the galaxies were mostly separated, and they, we just got to round 3, so we never got to really explore the game fully. But each galaxy played on its own. They have this like kind of legendary planet in the center that played the role of Mechatol Rex. A real Mechatol was kind of locked in the middle behind these wormholes were supposed to be added later, and that you can only go through after you have reached a certain number of points, I think was the idea. And you can't land on real Mechatol. You could just have like ships here, and if you had ground forces in this ship, you could score 2 victory points with the Imperial strategy card. And I forget which galaxy that was relevant, but yeah, here it is. Like Sol got to real Mechatol because they had here they have 7 points, so I think it was above 5 points or whatever it was. I can check it in the rules, right? Once a player has 6 points, they may enter the Mechatol Rex systems through their galaxy special wormholes. So each one had a different one: Eta, Iota, Zeta, etc. Right? So there was a special Iota. He was here. They could go to Mechatol. Each galaxy had a different one. And if you had your stars here, if you had ground forces in the system, you could pop Imperial and score 2 victory points.
Right.
And the idea was that at the end of each round, there's like this intergalactic event, and in the intergalactic event, a special rule is added, and then what also happens at some point, the game switches to the era of the tribunal, right? So the game will see transform from 24 players to 8 player, with the 2 leading players in each galaxy remaining as active players, and all the other players becoming vassals. So their units will be frozen on the board. Yes. They can play action cards, they can use the faction abilities, but they never get a turn. They don't follow strategy cards. Yeah, the agents.
I was excited to be a vassal specifically because it's like, who wants Titan's agent? Who wants it? Anyone in the universe.
Yeah. Titan's agent, Nomad's agent, cavalry, promissory notes, all the stuff was supposed to apply. Now, what happened? What happened in the first couple of rounds of Brassbird? Not just in your galaxy. What happened in the game?
Well, from what I remember, I have to get this out of the way. I was going to tell you that I was going to say this. But so Southeast was a fairly standard game, like I said. But the funniest thing that happened was that I think Finn and JJ were playing Argent. And our Nexus tile, as you can see, is Lapidus, which is a really cool tile. That's a planet in an asteroid field. It's a SAR player's wet dream is what that one is. But in order to get to Lapidus, you obviously have to have anti-mass deflectors. And Finn threw an absolute tantrum about the fact that he would have to research anti-mass to get in there. And I saw you guys just go off talking to each other about it. And I'm over here trying to convince Finn, like, anti-mass is actually a good tech. And you say, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Well, I gave each galaxy a different nexus. So one galaxy has the regular Malice.
Yeah.
The top
there's Quan.
Right. But then there's no, it's not Quan. It's those.
It's not Quan?
It's Ethan.
Or is it Quam?
Oh yeah, is that what it's called? Quam. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's got a name that's very similar, Quam or something. Yeah.
That's right. And then Lapidus was the one I picked here, and he just complained that it's unfair because it's less accessible than the other galaxies. And my point at the time was just like, this game is full of unfair nonsense. Like, how can you? But in any case, that was like something specific that happened. So it's true that. So this is the cool kind of thing that evolved, but also that ended up being kind of stressful. Is that each galaxy had really very much its own life, right?
Yes.
They were separate.
Yes, absolutely. And the outlier, I would say, is I think it's the one that you're looking at right now, the one with SAR in it, Southwest. That was the one where there was a spirit of cooperation going on that was unlike anything that I've seen.
No, the spirit of cooperation, the more extreme one was actually in the Northeast.
Was it? Oh, Northeast, really? Okay, so it was
But
whichever one where they were like, we're gonna boost up one faction to
yeah.
be the most superstar that we possibly can. And I thought it was SAR. Look, they're at 11 points.
No, yeah, but it is true that this galaxy SAR went bonkers and nobody was doing anything about it. Nobody
Well, I
like
thought everyone was helping them to
uh
get to that
so
point.
this has been a month ago, but my memory is that in the northeast the discussion was, but again, this is what was going on. I was going to say that each galaxy is a life of its own, but then there was all these like cross galaxy rumors and
Hmm.
discussion and animosity. And I'll
Yes.
get to what I was trying to do with the game and what I was hoping to do with the game in a moment. But what was happening is that there was a discussion in the Northeast about, hey, only two of us can advance. What if all six of us made whoever these two that advance the strongest they can possibly be? So Julnar
Okay.
was giving tech left and right, and Aaron is in the chair. Aaronas is in the chat. It's Mahakt. They were like, let's make a ton of money with the Mahakt machine. They did it in PBD100. Let's generate a ton of Mahakt infantry and then kill them all
Yes.
and make a ton of money that way, right?
Yeah. Well, Northeast was also the galaxy that did the classic Barony Necro money making
Oh yes,
scheme,
that's right.
and
So they
I
had
made the video. I made the meme video about that one.
80 plus rounds of combat they had. And I had made them, if you remember, I had made them actually play through the combat. So, because they were like, I'm going to let someone else click the button. I was like, no, you have to, if you're going to do the thing, you're going to have to be there and do it. No one else can do it for you. Aaronas was going to say, I was going to write both sides. No, you can't do that. Right. You got to,
No.
right. So they had, but also look at Necro. Necro has all the tech. So Jolnar gave, a Necro, Necro was given all the tech, and the thought was, we'll send them, they'll be super buffed. But again, they had only considered it when the other galaxies started being outraged by it, and there was just like this really acrimonious exchanges going on, and people were like, now that you're like, everyone's hating us and ganging on us before we decided to co-op, so we're going to double down on the co-op. There was all these like really nasty exchanges going on, and people like writing in each galaxy's chat, and all this stuff kind of interfering. And I had made it so no one can write in other people's galaxy, but there was all these bot helpers who could like break the rules.
Yeah.
And anyway,
And there was the meme channel, of course.
of course,
A lot of shit talking the meme channel.
yeah, and we can get to some of the memes that were going on here. There were some great memes about the different galaxies. I think that was pretty cool. That was like Argo here,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
there's like
you
this
gotta
was
look at mine. You gotta pull up mine right below that. This is one of the best ones.
yeah,
In my
Northwest. We could just make ourselves by arranging appropriate units on the board. Southwest, Northeast.
That was us.
I've been getting my Boulder Gate 3 dating simulator life going on.
Oh my god, I feel so young looking at that. I mean, no, I feel so old because I was so young when I made that.
And this was
Baldur's
true.
Gate 3 just came out. Oh my god.
Factionalism
Yeah.
taking over rather than playing properly was, was what was like an interesting. They could write in threads, Arona says. Yes, they could get in and write in the threads. So it's true that. So I'll get to it in a moment, but that was like a big controversy. Is it okay for people to collaborate to get to the second phase? And of course, like as vassals in the second phase, they could have some influence, but a lot of people were saying, kind of counting themselves out. I'm not going to go to the next stage. So, who am I going to support? And the camaraderie among each galaxy was pretty strong, I would say, right? There was like, of course, there were some. That's what, in the meme Sergeant Bug calls factionalism, right? Like, and that's something that I wasn't entirely expecting. I was expecting like collective cultures to come out in each galaxy, but this co-op strategy that was floated around and potentially pursued to some extent, what I think happened with SAR, you said that they effectively helped SAR a great deal. I think what SAR steamed ahead, they took custodians, and nobody was in a position to do anything about it at the time or whatever. And then when they said, well, SAR is definitely advancing to the next stage, so we might as well go after second place and not really worry about first place that much. We'll wait till, but the idea was supposed to be that once we move to the second stage, all 4 galaxies become connected through all these alphas and betas, and you're going to have units thrown out everywhere, and there's going to be all these vassals and everything's going on. And the thought would be that would be like an epic 8-player game on the terrain made by 4 individual games. That was the original thought, that could be cool. SAR getting to 11 points already by round 3 was like horrible for me, because I had said it as 16 victory points, and like that was like not gonna be well. Though I will say that in the rules I specifically said something like I left myself, wiggle room, because I said something like this is going to be played to 16 victory points or something else if I decide something else later.
For sure.
Because I was kind of worried about that. But let me just say, so that was like the experience of like all the different galaxies kind of collaborating with each other. So what was the point of the game? And I also kind of said that there were some surprises that were waiting. So the origin of this game, like part of the idea, came from Fog of War 41. And Fog of War 41, this was, the early days of the huge maps. I made this game that was for, I think we had 10 players. I think so. I think we had 10 players. We were playing with 10 strategy cards. But I added a ton of like home systems of like other factions, where if you take the home system, you get to be, you get the commander ability and the promise you're not of that faction. And I beefed up all these home systems, and I thought it would be kind of cool that, the players are in the fog, they're going around the galaxy, and they meet someone and they don't know if that someone is like a real player or just like, an NPC basically. And I called them vassals after like Sarin was using it in Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, the expansion has this idea of like inert factions just sitting there and that can be controlled or like taken over by the players. Now, when I was creating this map, I needed to populate all the vassals with players. So I just put in a bunch of people like Chassit and Hado and Kaluin and Jazz and Saurbor and Somno and Finn. And I gave them all these factions and I set them in their seats. And I was like, all right, you can mute this channel. You're just here to pretend like you can message the players. They're in the fog. They don't know. You can message them, but you can't do anything on the map. Right? And I thought, whatever, they're just going to ignore it and move on. But a ton of my vassals here were really loving this game. They loved sitting in the fog. Expendable was like, can I change where my units are? And I'm going to pretend I'm this and that. And Jez was like, I think as Julnar, he was getting Era's money, and they started wanting to trade, and so I like gave him this like, so I didn't think of it originally, but I gave them this ability to give some factions quests that they could go after. But I was like, originally I thought this is going to be just inert NPCs. I was just using those people to sit in the chair so that I would have a user. Yeah, Aaron says no one found them. Yeah, it was a huge map. But they loved it so much. So I was like, what if I made a game where being a vassal is like baked into the experience, where you have stakes in it because you're played in the earlier part of the game. And so the thought was like, you're competing with the people in your galaxy, and let's say SAR wins. But then you can like continue screwing him over when everyone merges to the big one. Like you have stakes in it, and the game it's not just me like setting up factions. So that was the idea. And of course, like when the cooperation stuff started coming up, I said, oh, that's really kind of interesting. And I was also kind of using the events. I had this like intergalactic events. I was kind of using them to balance things out and to be able to intervene a little bit. But if you noticed, and I don't know if you did, I kind of wrote all these stories. Tales of a spoon-waving Noor with a prophet, and this researcher, this Nalu researcher here, and all sorts of like the prophet of cutlery, they called him, and all these kind of stuff that was taking place. So I don't know, did you look at it? Do you have any memory of that, or was that not?
I do not have a lot of memory of this, but now seeing it, I feel bad that I didn't read it.
No, that's fine. But in this stuff, I talking about how there's like this new technology of interdimensional shift.
Yes. Right.
And the thought, so my plan was, as we were going to go into so that's where we're supposed to now in the end of the third round switch to the era of the tribunal. So we would take 2 players from each galaxy, and they would be playing this 8-player game on this huge map with all the wormholes, and we have all these vassals. But what I didn't tell anyone, and that was the plan, is that the end of each round after that, any one of the quote-unquote real players, the remaining 8 players, could drop out, the one who has least points, and one of the vassals take their place.
What?
So the whole point that was like the thing that I was like, how can I get vassals that are invested in the game? I'm going to give them the history. So then they have like gripes. And then when they least expect it, if they like, I was going to pick like the ones who did most and affected the game most, they can jump back in and actually have a chance to win. Because that was the interdimensional shifts. Like we shifted and now all of a sudden it's the barony rather than whoever that's like fallen into decay. And I thought that after a round of this, once the first vassals like rejoin, all the other vassals would be like, wait a minute, I can still be in this. I can still win the game. And that was where I was heading with this. I really wanted to get to that stage where the vassals are like really engaged. So that was like the sandwich of motivation was the history with the faction and the potential of being able to jump into the game in the future. That was the thought. But I wanted to keep it a secret, which maybe I shouldn't have. And that's where the game stalled.
Yeah, I mean, the game stalled for like reasons external to that as well. But,
sure.
I want to jump in, and I want to just like, maybe give you a little bit of insight into what's happening in PBD2000. I mean, ultimately, I just want to tell you that like the legacy of PBD500 like is very much alive, is very, very much alive. What Baldric has done with 2000 is in many ways very, very similar. Like it has, oh yeah, here we go.
Right, so that's a generic galaxy, but then we have A, B, C, D, E.
There's 5 different ones. So it's a 5 galaxy game. So the big difference is that there's, as far as I know, we're not finished with the game or anything like that. There's no interdimensional like galaxies being able to affect each other kind of thing. They are separate galaxies, but there is going to be a finals. So there is that kind of like 2-stage thing where it's like there's the winner from each galaxy that is a normal faction will be advancing. And then there's 5 secret factions. So that's really the thing that's unique to 2000 is that there's, let me see if I can remember them. Syndicate, Enclave, Raven, which is what I'm playing.
There it is.
Terminator, and Echoes. There are the 5 custom factions. And they started off being completely secret. And no one but the secret faction knows what's going on with them. And as you use your abilities, you have to reveal them to the table. And there's like other stuff that keeps coming in round by round, and Aldrich will be like, oh, hey, and here's like another little secret thing. Here's another little secret thing. So that's really the unique thing about it. But so many other elements of 500 are preserved in this new structure. Like, for instance, the intergalactic events. There's like something that's happening each round that is something that's happening to all the galaxies at the same time. So the crazy one that happened was recently was called Space Risk. Like literally so insane. It was like both the diplomacy and imperial strategy cards just essentially like don't exist for this round. Like if you pick them, you won't have a strategic action. And if you like the active player, which whoever the active player is gets +1 to all combat rolls. And if you win a space combat, then you remove your token from that system. So then you can just keep rampaging.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So really big events. And really got to applaud Baldric for just showing so much creativity and really swinging for the fences in terms of like, I'm just going to make this crazy and memorable and all that kind of stuff. But it's very fair to say, I think, that 2000 just simply would not exist if 500 did not come before it.
Yeah, that's totally cool, and I'm super loving, the creativity of the factions here. The Stroder Market, promissory
Short
note.
market, love
Yeah,
it.
I'm looking at like this is like public information, so I'm not
Yes,
revealing anything. Sappers, double barrels. All this
yeah,
stuff is so funny. Death strike at the start of a combat against non-Terminator player. You may choose one enemy ship to destroy that unit. That's like a promissory
yeah,
note assault cannon, and you choose the unit. Holy smokes!
yeah. Terminator's great. Oh my gosh, Terminator's great. The funny thing that's been going on with the Terminator player is that they just kind of don't talk at all. They just don't talk. They post memes, which is great,
Yeah, yeah.
but they don't talk to anyone in their galaxy, which is very on theme for Terminator. They just go and kill, and they've had this whole like war with SAR going on that has been the stuff of legend, really.
Yeah, and there's like this cool faction faction symbols that they may for. Yeah, I mean, so the bot has like advanced so much since, and it's really cool to see the ability to do this kind of mega games. Um, so yeah, that's very very cool. I mean, my point was like not to play as much with the mechanics of the game, like not to play so much with the events that was supposed to be like, but to play with players' expectations of what they're going to do, and like
Yeah,
that drama that happened was like like I didn't predict or expect of it, but that was exactly what I was hoping would happen. Like these things would kind of shift as you realize the people you're helping, like who could be in the final version, final step of the game, and why. That was what was supposed to be changing. But I realized that I gave the 2 victory points was maybe too much, and then maybe I would have to make the game up to like 20 victory points, or I didn't even know where this was going. That was going to be pretty silly. But that's something that's always hard to predict. Here's the Terminator.
yeah. So actually, Necro's completely taken over in this galaxy. I think everyone in that galaxy was so terrified of Terminator and what they were capable of that they just kind of enabled Necro to just completely go bonkers. And as you can see, they're in the lead. And
Yeah, Terminator is at 1
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So that's the interesting thing, though, is that the regular factions are not really in contention with the secret faction at their table. So there's this lack of tension there
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, the secret faction, like they can still fuck you up and everything, but you're not necessarily trying to outscore them. You're trying to outscore the other regular factions.
And
That's
what
the only thing that determines whether or not you are advancing,
and what about the secret factions? Are they going anywhere? What are they doing?
Well, the thing is that the secret factions are competing with each other across
Oh, okay.
galaxies.
Across galaxies.
So
Okay.
so the only point total that you're comparing to as a secret faction are the other secret factions. So far, I think Coleon is still in the lead
Echoes here
as
was
Echoes.
yeah,
Yeah,
7
I
points.
think so. They're at 7. I don't know if anyone else secret faction wise is there. As you can see, they completely locked down Mechtal Rex. I don't think anyone's going to take Mechtal from them with like 13 infantry on there.
And no one
Yeah,
no one has is that it? Um oh no, that's we're back to Terminator.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Our
And
our story and huh?
I said no one has as big of an interest because no one is competing with them, right, in this galaxy.
No, exactly.
Look
Yeah.
at
So
this.
what happened with Galaxy B? I'm teamed up with Sergeant Buck, also known as Sergeant Bug. We're both playing Raven. We have had a rough time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, we have had a really rough time. Baldric keeps just like giving us temporary objectives. So that's the other thing, is that there's, for the secret factions, you have core objectives. You have a temporary objective, which is pretty much just round by round. If Baldric is like, here's this very challenging thing for you to do, he keeps giving us really, really difficult ones. And we keep complaining and saying, like, these are like just about impossible, Baldric. And then he says, well, Pally played Raven in the test game, and he did really, really well. So you shouldn't have a problem, right?
There's a Hakan space dock in your slice.
Yeah, so that's the most recent event that happened, is that it swapped a bunch of tiles around.
Oh, okay.
Just did, like, I think there was 3 or 4 different tile swaps that happened. So we got Primor over on the other side of the galaxy when that was in the equidistant between Ghost and Cabal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just bananas. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what to do anymore. So
I love
Bug
that
and I are just trying to have a good time throughout the torture that Baldric is putting us through.
I so love that Semlor is the, home planet of all these factions. All
it's
right,
the one true home.
Yeah, so I think we did a pretty good job. We got a dip of PBD2000. That was not super part of the plan, but next time maybe we could get Baldric up here to talk about his schemes. I hope that all of y'all who wanted to finish up PBD500 got a little bit of closure, for the memes, right?
Of course.
Because this is like, I wonder what the Northeast is up to. 279 messages. Yeah. Why can't you just be normal? This is Sergeant Bug, where it's like, we're hoping you can take constructions and build 3 dreads so that then I'm going to sling relay and uranium armor so you can research NES like that. So Necro has also made it. We're waiting on Tispoon. Oh, yeah. That was sad. So he got pretty acrimonious. And that was,
I mean, part of the plan. And I don't know that if there's any closing message that I'm going to say as far as like addressing. Oh, and there's that video. But yeah, if there's any closing message that I'm going to stuff happening, it's just like you gotta approach each game like as its own thing. And you can't really come into it saying like, this is the way that this should be, and this is the way that this should be. It's its own thing. This game was definitely its own thing, and it came with its own set of politics, and the fact that it devolved into that kind of factionalism, I think, maybe it was by design.
Yeah, I mean, it exceeded the design, but it definitely wanted to play on the role of the vassal, which I think ended up playing a big role in it because people were like, I don't care, I'm just going to be a vassal. So, I mean, and this was a chassis meme that really broke my heart. In the beginning, PBD500 was created. That has made a lot of people very angry and had been widely regarded as a bad move. That was...
But it's a Doug Adams quote. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah. And he says that about the Earth, so that's pretty...
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good comparison. The era of the survival of the SARS coming. And then, flipping tables. Yeah. All right. So I hope you got some closure. Those of you, we never got to play this game to completion. And I'll cook up a different mega game that hopefully will mess with people's minds and raise all sorts of anxiety, factionalism, fear and hatred, but at this point I probably will try to recruit a co-moderator before the game starts, so I'm not left on my own.
Yes.
All right.
This time we'll be ready for it.
All right, man. Well, it's a pleasure always. Next time we'll chat about PBD100. We have, we have a little bit of a video coming up about that. All right. Bye-bye, folks.